Yo, what's up, guys? In this video, we are going back in time when I used to study OPS. And this is because there's someone called Thor or something is coming up on my feed with the worst information possible. In this video, not only we are going to dissect what Eric Thor's understanding is, but also enlighten you why OPS is amazing. I literally used OPS to change my life around. Not only change my life around, but also document it in this very channel. When I was learning OPS, I was in India in the worst job possible. Now, 3 years later, I'm learning OPS for 3 years now. 3 years later, I'm in Canada doing my master's degree in artificial intelligence, and I have a job as a data scientist. This stuff actually works, and it not just works, it works really well. And if you really understand what OPS is, it's like a GTA hack. So, without further ado, let's dive in. All right.
Hey everyone, the name is Eric Thor and I'm 1 month into studying objective personality type. Actually, I've been studying it for years, but I've taken 1 month to fully dive into their videos and to understand their content and to develop this series on objective personality and their concepts. Today we're talking about the objective personality cognitive functions. And let's be real here. I think that the objective personality cognitive function theory is probably the worst and the most underdeveloped part of their theory. I'm sorry to say, when I look at their definitions for the cognitive functions, I feel like a lot is lost in translation. Objective personality does something.
Wait, what are you even comparing it to though? I thought you were understanding objective personality. Let me see his background really quick. Just give me 1 second. What does he do? Is he an MBTI guy? Is he an Enneagram? Is he an MBTI or an Enneagram guy? Or is he like a socionics guy? Which category is he? I think it's MBTI. So I think he's comparing this to MBTI, if I'm not wrong. I've not some distinct between the Carl. I think he's comparing to Carl Jung's theory on cognitive functions.
Functions that makes me wonder if it's really a cognitive function model at all. I see no relationship to Carl Jung's original theories here. I see no explanation for how they made introverted intuition into what it was in their model.
I hate to be pausing, so he literally answers my question in the next sentence.
I see it. They need to go back to Jung's original source and think about how they use these concepts and whether they should call these concepts cognitive functions at all. Objective personality describes introverted intuition as the act of organizing ideas.
Okay, so I understand the problem. So he's stuck with the SI. Oh, so using OPS terms now. So he's stuck with the vocabulary of the definitions, because this definitions TI, FE, NI, NE, it all comes from Jungian model, which is like Carl Jung's model. However, you're using the same terms. Objective personality uses the same terms, but it gives a different understanding to the terms. They use the terms as a marker, because the way objective personality was developed, it was Dave and Shan. They had MBTI, they learned MBTI, and they kept trying to implement that in their business, which Dave had, which was a model airplane business in the forums, and he was trying to implement the understanding in his forums and trying to find these patterns with the customer. He found the patterns. However, in that process, his understanding of the definitions kept upgrading, the intuition kept changing about what the labels is. So they kept the labels, however the definitions of the labels are something completely different.
Objective personality describes introverted intuition as the act of organizing ideas. If you organize ideas, you use introverted intuition.
Whoa, what are you talking about? What is he saying?
If you focus on your personal values, you use introverted feeling. That's how easy it is. That's how simple it is. The act of focusing on or doing things based on your personal value system means using introverted feeling. Right. Okay. I feel like something is lost in translation here. I feel like
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? Something is lost in translation. Man, I'm going really hard after this guy. Of course it is lost in translation. You know why? Because there's an unsaid assumption that's being made here. The unsaid assumption is His understanding of that sentence is exactly the same as the objective Dave and Shan's understanding of that sentence. The way Dave and Shan use that sentence is really a placeholder for an abstract understanding. So when you actually go over objective personality class and keep typing someone every week or keep talking to people of a certain type and try to like find the patterns for yourself, you would kind of see what they are talking about. But since it's such a nuanced distinction that language itself cannot capture, the definition itself are like a reminder rather than a definition, you know. So understandable mistake. I feel everyone makes this mistake, so it's fine.
Something is missing. The more I look at their data, the more I look at their information and their insight, I feel like this is a very underdeveloped theory.
What? No, man, he's killing me with every sentence. Wow. No, the reason it feels underdeveloped, which I don't feel is a bad thing, of course, is because you haven't put in the time to get the patterns for yourself, investigate what they're saying is true or false, and then verify, which takes like 6 months at least.
It's like a child delivered a scientific formula to an establishment and said, "Hey, this is where I am. Look, the sun can be defined as hot air, and the moon can be described as cold air."
What are you
Sure.
talking about?
Okay, that's an interesting starting point. Do you want to dig a little deeper in that? The way I see it, the cognitive functions are far more complicated and require a more in depth approach. Yeah, you have to understand that the human
What?
mind is one of the most complicated things there is. And if you're seeking to explain the cognitive functions, you shouldn't be hiding behind one liners. So you have to.
Yo, what? Dude! Ha! Shocking. All right. So here's the assumption this gentleman is making here. The assumption here is the trap is you are assuming that a pattern, an experience that you haven't had for yourself, can be captured in a language or in a sentence, and just by reading that sentence you can have that experience for yourself. For example, it is complicated, but here's a very simple example. If all I do is talk about the moon, yeah, but you haven't seen the moon, but I talk about the moon, man, the moon is big, it's white, it is like a white pearl but in a sky, but big, and it glows. I'm talking about the moon, and you go, you know what, but you haven't seen the moon for yourself, right? But you go, you know what, is this all the moon is moon really a white pearl? Yeah. Is moon really a big white glowing thing? And the definition of a moon could be a big white glowing thing, but you haven't seen the moon for yourself. The question here is, can you see the moon without actually seeing the moon? Just by reading about the moon, can you have the experience of seeing the moon? The answer is no. And that's the problem with OPS itself. The problem with OPS is they are seeing patterns, they're making distinctions that I feel language just doesn't capture. So the distinction is not made on a conceptual level. With OPS, the reason why it's so powerful and it's so hard to learn is because the distinctions are made in an experiential level. The distinctions are made in an experience, right? And the reason he came up to this conclusion right here.
Cognitive functions are far more complicated and require a more in depth approach.
The reason he's coming here because what he's expecting, he doesn't want to put in an experiential effort into understanding objective personality theory, but is seeking and conceptual in effort. Yeah. But objective personality is never conceptual, it is built off of experiential data. So the data itself is different. Feel me? So he's like, I want conceptual data. However, they have this one line which obviously doesn't which obviously doesn't capture the meaning of what NI is. But what does capture the meaning of NI is if you go to like a lot of NI people that is typed in objective personality, and if you like talk to them, you can actually start seeing the pattern of what they're actually pointing to. However, that requires a little bit of practice. It takes 6 months to a year.
Yeah, you have to understand that the human mind is one of the most complicated things there is. And if you're seeking to explain the cognitive functions, you shouldn't be hiding behind one liners. So you have to understand the bigger picture of what these cognitive functions are and how they work. These are dynamic, changing,
See, I feel he's seeking a falsehood. He's trying to capture an experience that a person has never had into an conceptual framework like language. The experiential investigation is always different from conceptual investigation, and conceptual investigation assumes that you and I have the same experiential data to work with in the first place. However, in this case, Eric Thor and objective personality do not have the same experiential data to build off of the theory, right? Because the investigation is happening in an experiential level. Follow me. The investigation is happening in an experiential level. So you're making distinctions that no one has ever made before, that you haven't never made before. So step number one, before actually building onto the conceptual theory on top of OPS, is to have the same experiential data.
They are movements of energy inside. They are thought processes, reasoning processes. They are actions that are being taken to address things that are happening. So, every cognitive function needs to be understood in a greater scheme. Introverted intuition is not just the act of organizing ideas. Introverted intuition is the act of connecting to the world of ideas, as Plato would describe it, learning how you relate to and connect with all the different intuitions and associations of your mind, learning to see all kinds of different systems and patterns and connections, and learning how to process.
So what he's describing here in OPS would be NE. It wouldn't be NI. So just so you know. So even the definitions are different. So he's actually explaining NE, and I think he's my exact type twin. I think his NETI consume play blastly, something like that. I don't know. It's very close to me, but I think it's double feminine, whatever. I don't care. I only know that he's wrong. He's wrong. He's wrong because had he studied OPS, he would realize that this is not actually NI, that's NE. Because what he just said is this.
Connect with all the different intuitions and associations.
Connect with all the different intuitions and associations. In OPS, E is extroverted, and it's extroverted spectrum, and you have intuition. You have intuition and you have extroverted spectrum. So what NE is trying to do is trying to connect with all different concepts, right? This is like how he's describing, basically.
Learning how you relate to and connect with all the different
How you relate to and connect with all the different In OPS, this would be NE. It wouldn't be NI. NI is doing something completely different. It is actually stacking on the same intuition.
intuitions and associations of your.
A best example I can give between NI and NE, here's like a quick OP lesson on NI and NE. It's like this. Imagine this. Let's say you were lost somewhere. You want to go home. You need to know two things. One, where your home is. Two, a map that can get you to the home. Now, even among maps, there are different kinds of maps that you can have. You can have a street map. You can have a McDonald's map. You can have a map of all the hospitals. You can have a map of terrain, of the height and of different terrains. They're like, there's like so many different, you could have a sewer map, there's so many different maps that you have at your disposal. But to get to home, you would use a street map. But if you want to get to hospital, you would use a map that has hospitals in it. Yeah. If you want to go to a McDonald's, you would use a map that if you want to go to McDonald's, you would use a map that has McDonald's in it. You see, for NE, this is 3 different maps. But if this was an NI user, they would never have these many maps. As an NE user, you're trying to like connect different maps, right? But as an NI user, what they are doing is they are building on the same map. So you would have a street map. On top of the street map, you would have the hospitals as well. On top of this hospitals, you will have McDonald's as well. So they're always using one map to navigate their reality. But any user is different. Any user has like a very to achieve this and to see if their one map works, they gather a lot of data, which is where SE comes in. You're gathering extroverted sensory. That's where SE comes in, and that's where SE and NI connects. On the other hand, if you take NE and SI, so if you see, I have very specific destinations I want. Okay, I want to go to home, so I will use the street map. I want to go to McDonald's, so I will use the MACD map. I want to go to hospital, I'll use a hospital map. So I have very specific sensory points that I want to go to, and I have different maps that will get me to like very specific sensory places. That's why you will find often any SI users would be very introverted in terms of their sensory. They'll often be going to the same place. I go to the same I go to the same grocery store for like past 8 months because I don't want to deal with just consuming more sensory. Because I know, okay, if I want tomatoes, I know in this shop, this has the tomatoes. And I always go to that shop. And I don't mind paying a little bit extra, you know. But an SE user wouldn't just go to that shop. They'll go to every shop and see how the prices of tomatoes are, and they'll pick the best one. And they'll have like one map. Never mind. So this is NE and NI. So what he's describing here is NE in OPS.
Your mind, learning to see all kinds of different systems and patterns and connections, and learning how to process and synthesize and compress these insights into theories, into concepts, into workable frameworks to understand the world. Yeah, introverted intuition looks at and sees how it's connected to everything that's happening around it. It tunes inside, looking at its own associations and its own theories.
So now he's describing TI. All right. Man, this guy is describing his functions. Wait, does he think he's an NI user or something? Wait, what does he think he is? I don't know what his type is. Just give me a moment. What does he think he is? Oh, see, it makes sense. He sees himself as an NI user. I think, it is his side. He sees himself as an NI user. And obviously, he has misunderstood NI for NE. If he was getting typed in objective personality, he would be an NE user. That's because objective personality is completely different system when you compare it with Jung's or MBTI or Socionics or Enneagram. So now he's describing TI. So you're taking all the possibilities and you're going inwards and you're seeing one logical theory that connects all these patterns together. This guy's explaining so perfectly. It's just the labels are like switched.
And its own connections, and it sees how to translate that and how to express that in the outer world. Introverted intuition is a movement of energy from one's unconscious possibilities or ideas to the outer world of how to manifest what you do and how to use.
What are you saying, dude? This is mental masturbation. That doesn't mean anything. It's like a cold reading. What does that mean? Practically. Like, how would you apply that in real life? That's why most people who learn MBTI never get any real world results. Because the information is never built on their own experience, but rather built on a conceptual theory, and you kind of like take the other person as an authority figure, right? Like if you had to implement what he just said in the last 5 seconds practically, what would you do? What does that mean in reality? You don't know. That you can't know. What does that mean? Let's listen again.
Its own connections, and it sees how to translate that and how to express that in the outer world. Introverted intuition is a movement of energy from one's unconscious possibilities or ideas to the outer world of how to manifest what you do and how to use your ideas to explain the future, to explain what's going to happen, to explain what's going to become the next thing. Yeah, as you can see, when you want to understand the mind, you can't go to McDonald's and order a cheeseburger. You can't go and say, hey, here's a nice one liner. You need to take time to really
What?
process.
Wait, what is he saying, dude? What McDonald's? Wait, I think I'm missing something, guys. Just give me 1 second. I really apologize for this.
Of
What?
how to manifest what you do and how to use your ideas to explain
Yeah, what does this
options
mean? Look, try to think, okay, I'm gonna apply this practically.
at its own associations and its own theories and its own connections. And it sees how to translate that and how to express that in the outer world. Introverted intuition is a movement of energy from one's unconscious possibilities or ideas to the outer world of how to manifest what you do and how to use your ideas to explain the future, to explain what's going to happen, to explain.
How to use your ideas to explain the future. You understand all of this is happening in abstract, right? Future is abstract. Yeah, of course, it's not here. Ideas are abstract. Of course, they're in your head. You're using ideas to explain the future, and there's like a movement of energy. Okay, now what? What's in it for you? So you're watching this. Take this and apply it. So what will you do with this information? So how would you apply this? You see the problem here.
Explain what's going to become the next thing. Yeah, as you can see, when you want to understand the mind, you can't go to McDonald's and order a cheeseburger. You can't go and say, hey, here's a nice one liner. You need
What?
how you experience life, how you experience your thinking process, your decision making, and how you engage in these processes.
So he's using the word experience. However, that doesn't mean experiential data. He's trying to explore conceptually. So by his saying his experience, he's talking about more reading books and getting the high from, I call it mental masturbation, but getting the high from learning concepts and, oh wow, I never saw this understanding before. That's what he's talking about.
How do you make decisions? How do you think about things? What kind of archetypal manifestations does your mind create in order to comprehend and explain the world? How do you explore and experience everything that's happening around you? You're too complicated to be defined by a one-liner. Yeah,
Of course, that is why the one liner is never meant. So, of course, here's again the assumption that a set of symbols can capture the essence of you without an experiential data. So, you have to understand an experience comes first, and then you have symbols trying to explain the experience. But let's say you don't have the experience, but you just have the symbols. What are you going to do with it? What does this explain? Nothing. It doesn't matter if you have 10 paragraph. It doesn't matter if you have one books. It doesn't matter if you have 10 books. It doesn't matter if you watched hundreds. It doesn't even matter if you watched all of his channel. If you don't have the experience, you see this? This is the experience. If you don't have the experience, the symbols are useless. But if you do have the experience, you don't need that many symbols to point to their experience. Because symbols are always like a reminder to an experience, especially in a work like this, OPS, I mean, the symbols are just trying to like point at the very abstract, super abstract essence of this very huge experiential data. It's more like saying moon is a big shiny ball in the sky. But of course, if I just say that to you, you wouldn't have the experience of the moon, right? Unless you look at the moon itself. But once you look at the moon, and if I say, oh, moon, remember that big shiny thing in the sky? You'll be like, oh, yeah. Continue, you know? You see how it builds?
there is more to be learned, more to be discovered.
Experientially. There's more to be discovered experientially. Guys, please, don't forget that.
The personality offers, honestly, no real explanation or elaboration on how they
No.
use their concepts. Perhaps they're onto something,
No.
but I wouldn't be able to tell.
Of course.
The way they use their concepts
He can't tell,
in their
of course.
videos
He has not put in
and
the
in their
effort.
explanations is insufficient. It's not enough for me to say, okay, this is a theory or this is great.
Dude, it's like, bro, you put 1 month in. It's like me taking this guitar. It's like this. Imagine I take this guitar. What? His logic is very similar to this. Imagine I take this guitar and I never play it. I never play the guitar. I watch all the theories on playing the guitar. I watch YouTube videos on playing guitar. I watch all the concepts. I read all the concepts. Yeah, but I never actually play the guitar. And I go, you know what? After a month, you know what? I watched all this theory. I watched all this thing. Look, I strummed this. Look, I strummed this. I don't see music, man. I don't see music. You know what? I don't think it's I don't think that's an instrument, you know? I don't think you can get music from that. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. It's like that. Doesn't make sense. Does it? Does it? Let me know in the comments below. Does it make sense? It doesn't to me.
Right? I think honestly they're just using the cognitive functions as new dichotomies. They've made the cognitive functions so simple that they're just actually representations of their base dichotomies: self, tribe, organize, scatter, values.
So they are symbols pointing to an experience. However, do you have that experience? No. Now, how do you get that experience? Now we're asking a very good question. Now, how do you get that experiential data? You know what? I'm gonna let you figure that out. I don't want to. I don't want to make this video too long.
Reasons, ideas, facts. Yeah, what they've done is they've just picked these things together and they've said, okay, these are the cognitive functions, but they haven't actually taken the time to think about how these things are cognitive functions. Yeah, it's just a system of dichotomies, of pairings of dichotomies. It's not a system of cognitive functions. I want to be honest and say there are things I definitely like about objective personality's model, and there are concepts I find really interesting, but it's a system that needs a lot more work. And it's a system that promises to be a lot more than what it is. It's so far from becoming a complete model. It's so far from being anything representative of anything real. It is as a grain of sand in what needs to be so much bigger.
What is he talking about, dude? Half the times he's like telling abstract stuff that doesn't make any sense. But of course I understand that because that's me as well. That's me. I look at him, that's me.
It's an interesting premise if it was marketed as such, but it's not. It's marketed as objective.
See, I can agree with that. The marketing is a bit wacky, yeah. But if you get beyond that, and if you actually try to earnestly, if you are open-minded and if you are skeptical at the same time, what do I mean? If you are open to the idea that, okay, they are pointing to something that I don't know for sure, but it might not be, which might be true, but it might not be objective. It's a very open-minded skepticism that you're approaching this with. Trust me, guys, there is so. I have studied MBTI. I've studied socionics a bit, Enneagram a little bit. I've actually studied a lot of psychology in terms of like understanding human interactions and stuff from like books written from like kings and stuff like that. Objective personality, I feel, is an amazing model that kind of captures most of the essence of all of the systems, and it's very, 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 it's very practical. It's worth the time. And if look at, you can use me as a proof. If you look at my channel, you can literally go back, scroll back, and you'll see where I was, and you can scroll back again here, and you'll see where I am. Thanks to OPS, honestly. And I still send my gratitude to Dave and Shan. So I don't know what else to say.
That in my future video. Subscribe and like for more videos.
By the way, I forgot to tell this. If you are coming from the objective personality community, do not subscribe to this channel. Don't. I know this is sad, but don't subscribe to this channel. This is not an OPS channel. I just happen to have a lot of understanding of OPS, but I wanted to like steer away from the OP content. But again, I feel every year some guy comes like this. This is, I think, the third person or fourth. First, there was like a guy who thought OPS was a cult. That was a phase. Then a socionics guy came. He thought OPS exactly like this, and he caused a lot of drama. That was a thing. Then there was like another guy who thought it was a cult again. That was another thing. Yeah. whatever. And now you have him. I think he's the fourth guy. I think every year you just get someone. And I feel compelled to make this video just because the amount of misinformation is so much. I feel it's really unfair to Dave and Shan, who are actually putting effort in making their content. Yeah, do not subscribe to this channel. Nope. But leave a like and do comment below. I would love to hear what you guys think. Any sharing is really appreciated.